Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our Committee of the Whole meeting for Wednesday, February 19th, 2025. I will now call the meeting to order. Item 1.1 is the territorial acknowledgement. We acknowledge that we are in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. Administrative and procedural issues, 2.1, the approval of the agenda. I will note that item 4.1, under business issues, foundation donation request from the Christy Smith Community Fund has been removed from today's agenda, so please remove it. And I will now ask for a motion to approve the agenda as amended. So moved by Councillor Lee, seconder for the motion, Councillor O'Telling. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Thank you very much. Motion carried. I will bring your attention to item 2.2, declarations of the conflict of interest. As per the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act, members are required to declare a conflict of interest prior to any discussion on the matter. 2.3, approval of the, go ahead, Councillor Gould.
Your Worship, I'd like to declare a conflict on 2.5.1.
2.5.1, 2.5.1, okay, I have you here. We'll get you out before that starts. Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. Make a note. Okay. And 2.3, approval of minutes. The recommended motion is that the minutes of the January 15th, 2025 regular Committee of the Whole meeting be approved as presented. Moved by Councillor Strong, seconded by Deputy Mayor Gould. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion carried. Thank you very much. Business arising will now be reviewed. Mr. Hart, go ahead. You have the floor.
Thank you, Worship. Business arising is at page 8 of Council's information package for the meeting. Two components of business arising. One is from the most recent Committee of the Whole on January 15th. Happy to report that all items are complete relating to hospitality policy, a student bursary policy, proposed amendments to the land use bylaw, and the proposed active living and recreation strategy. All those items are complete. And there is an ongoing item with respect to creating a report on the issue of drinking water in the River Hibbert area. And so that is still in progress, Your Worship. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hart. Anyone have any questions on that for Mr. Hart? Seeing none, we'll move right along. We now have before us this afternoon 3 public hearings that will happen one right after another. And before we start, I will advise all of you that the public hearing is being held in accordance to the provisions of the Municipal Government Act, and the purpose of the public hearing is to provide the public with the opportunity to express their views on certain proposals prior to Council making a final decision. Just to be clear, that means that there will be no vote on any of those 3 items here today. I'll now call the public hearing to order and ask second. Yep, go ahead. Yes, sorry. Rolling right along here. Forgot about you. Sorry about that, Deputy Mayor Gould. Now I will call the public hearing to order as he's leaving the room. So now I'll call on Director Boone to give us a presentation on the first one, which is the public hearing for the bylaw to amend the LUB 25-01 to amend the requirements surrounding the development of undersized lots. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Your Worship. Maybe we could just take a moment to review the procedures within the public hearing.
Can if you want.
Okay. Something you would have in front of you.
I was waiting for you to stop talking. Okay, so how this works is the staff will provide a presentation on the proposed bylaw or amendment. I will ask if there are any written submissions received in regards to this hearing. Staff will then read any written submissions or advise that there were none. Should any of the members of the public be present, they will now be requested to provide their comments on the issue, keeping in mind this. Each speaker is permitted to only speak once. Each speaker is limited to 5 minutes, and questions of clarification on anything being said may only be permitted by myself. The mayor will then ask for additional comments from the applicant, and the next step is the mayor to ask for any additional questions from councillors, which staff will respond to. Any questions? I think we're good to go.
Thank you, Worship. Good afternoon, members of council, members of the public, and staff. As Worship mentioned, we have, excuse me, 3 public hearings today. We're going to start with the public hearing on undersized lots. So as council's aware, this process follows the Municipal Government Act, and it allows us to make changes to the land use bylaws. So this isn't based on a particular application. This is based on a review of criteria under the land use bylaw and our municipal planning strategy in respect to development in general, but in this specific case, it's to look at our criteria around undersized lots. Prior to us bringing this forward to council as a first reading, leading to this public hearing, we had several working sessions, as you recall, with Committee of the Whole to provide background and have some conversation to allow staff to be focused on how we move forward on providing a report and our recommendations. So a lot of work's been done by staff and engagement as well with the public. So proposed changes, I'm not going to read all of these, Your Worship, but I think the highlights are in the blue to the right. The section to the left is the actual sections of our bylaw, 4.4.2, that deals with existing undersized lots. One of the largest challenges we have with development on undersized lots is lots that may not meet the criteria, which is in the bylaw currently at 900 square meters, but could be an existing lot that has been in place, some going back into the 50s and the 60s, and we even have undersized lots that may have been developed under subdivision bylaws that would be considered undersized lots. So the proposal within these changes is to look at undersized lots as long as they existed prior to the development of our bylaws and existed in the former jurisdictions of Parsboro and Spring Hill, that they could be considered eligible for application for development, and more importantly, that the undersized lots would have to be supported by an approval of an on-site sewage disposal system as determined by the Department of Environment. So instead of having a set size, if it's an existing lot that legally existed, it would be able to go forward provided an on-site sewage disposal system can be designed and approved by the Department of Environment. One of the common challenges we have working with our residents is lot coverage, especially on older undersized lots. The current bylaw had restricted that to 10%, and so the increase, looking at different criteria that we have through planning bylaws elsewhere, and what would be reasonable is 25% was the decision to move forward to. If you look at, Your Worship and members of council, if you look at what criteria might exist in other planning documents and planning bylaws, do some research, 35 to 45% would be normal lot coverage in residential zones. We went with a smaller lot coverage on undersized lots just because a lot of these are located in areas that don't have central services, so may not have the same level of fire protection as you would see in the urban areas. So we look to reduce those lot coverages to create separations between the developed areas. We're looking at, instead of having setbacks looked at through various reductions, we just set a setback limitation at 3 meters throughout. The shoreline buffer will be maintained, so there was a lot of conversation, we had a lot of inputs from the public. The shoreline buffer is being maintained for all new development. The only considerations is existing cottages or homes that are on undersized lots, and I'm going to better explain that by looking at some sketches here in a minute. And we've looked to, as part of this review, we looked at restricting the heights, maximum development and building heights on waterfront lots, because we have had a lot of inquiries and a lot of concerns and complaints mentioned, both to council and to our staff, about larger buildings that are replacing old buildings, which all meet our development criteria, but we're looking at 1-level homes or cottages that are being replaced with 3-level cottages and homes. So we look to restrict that height as part of this process. One of the changes we did look at making with regards to water course buffers, as I mentioned earlier, is adding a special section that deals with existing main buildings, and its existing main buildings on undersized lots may permit it, and you can do additions, provided we don't further reduce any existing distance from the top of the bank or of the water course or shoreline to the main building. So essentially expansions and additions must maintain that setback from the ordinary high water mark or the top of the bank. So these sketches are just meant to give both the public and council an opportunity to see. These are examples of existing buildings that we would not permit expansions. So if you look at these examples, I know it might be a little harder to see in the back screens, but this is examples where the existing setback from the top of the bank must be maintained. So you can't build in front of your existing building and further impede that setback, and you can't look at doing it whether it's to the front or the side. You have to maintain the main building shown as the black, you have to maintain that setback that exists. In this case, even if the setback from the top of the bank is larger than a required shoreline buffer, we're still requiring folks to not build in front of these existing buildings. So if you're at 32 meters and it's 30.5 meters, which is what the requirement is, you're going to maintain the 32 meters. If you're at 15 meters, next sketch, Peter, please, sorry. If you're at 15 meters, you'll be able to maintain that 15-meter setback, but you won't be able to get any closer. So the example you can see to the left, the screen, is that this building is in particular, excuse my eyesight, Your Worship, 32 meters, and the setback required at 30.5. The expansion or addition to the existing home, building, cottage would still maintain that existing buffer setback from top of the bank. The example to the right would be a situation where an older cottage or home has been built and it's already within that existing 30.5 meter shoreline buffer, but you would be allowed to expand, but just not get any further to the top of the bank. The last sketch is to deal with existing vacant watercourse and waterfront lots. So in this case, you have an existing lot that the Department of Environment confirms with the applicant that they can design a septic system for. It legally existed, as I mentioned earlier, but in this case, one of the considerations in the original conversations with council was looking to change that shoreline setback. The discussion with council, and as proposed in the first reading, was not to change that shoreline setback. So in this case, new development on a vacant lot must maintain the shoreline setback. Next slide, please, Peter. So considerations, Your Worship, staff did some pre-public engagement. We went through Plan Cumberland, put notices out in the municipal website, trying to get some additional engagement even before we came to a first reading with council. Staff reported on that during our conversations at COW. We used that information to help develop the first reading. After the first reading was approved, we then had additional notices to the public, both on our website in accordance with the Municipal Government Act, and a planning notice in this topic was actually placed in the Chronicle Herald on February 8th. There was a summary of comments in the report. This is based on the comments we had at the time the report was created, Your Worship, and to members of council. So anything that would have come in after the report was created will be added to the second reading report that would happen at a later council date. So we'll make sure that anything that came in kind of in the interim, Your Worship, will be part of the overall package.
Glenn, just interrupt you there for a second. I apologize. Just on that slide, to point out that there's just a little bit of a labeling issue with the green bar in the middle of the slide. It says comments against proposed changes 10, and comments in support.
They're just reversed.
Right, they should be reversed. Yes.
So apologize, Your Worship. Your director has a little dyslexia, so it does happen from time to time. That is important to note. So in summarizing them, 10 comments that were expressed, and a lot of the comments were around the lot coverage and the ability to be able to expand existing dwellings or cottages or homes. The things that were raised in opposition was a lot of information around sensitivity, ecosystem, looking at some of the challenges we've had with coastline erosion. And as I mentioned to council during the sessions, working sessions, we are still looking to get the information that we'll use in our complete plan review that would allow us to look at additional coastline mapping, both on elevations and on line coastal flooding. We'll use that in our process going forward. Folks were concerned with additional crowding in some of these areas, but one of the key comments we had in the initial public input was concerns about reducing that setback that I just talked about on new lots. So that is not part of these changes. We've moved away from that based on the conversations that were had with council and some amendments that were put forward by council. So just wanted to reinforce that. So, financial implications, there was obviously an opportunity for some increased development on the undersized lots, provided we follow all the criteria and the changes that we're putting forward. There can be some undersized existing lots that currently have no development on them, that if they can meet that criteria, could move forward. Setbacks in environmental implications were part of the review and the plan, the original plan that council has now was part of that plan that was done in 2017. And as part of that guiding principles, those policies still exist within our municipal planning strategy. We're not stepping outside those policies. And as we mentioned earlier, staff's not recommending any reduction of the main buffers, shoreline buffers, or watercourse buffers. And we will still look at this as an overall arching issue when we do the complete plan review. As council knows, and it's actually in our departmental report, the plan review, the RFP to do that additional work, which is quite cumbersome, quite large, that RFP closes next week. So I think it's important for the public to know we're going to do some additional work on this. So at this point, Your Worship, it's a public hearing, so there's no motions to consider. Thank you.
Thank you very much. If there's anyone here from the public that wishes to speak today, now would be a good time to raise your hand. What's that? We're good? Okay. So, no one is here to speak. Any additional comments from anyone that you'd like to relay to us?
Your Worship, as I mentioned, the comments that we have are in the package. Anything additional will be added prior to any second reading. I do want to stress that as part of the process, we had a lot of staff engagement. Our development officer, building officials hear a lot of information from applicants, so we made sure they were part of the process, not just myself and our planner, Kira. And just to make sure that we looked at this very holistically with a lot of detail. As I mentioned, the plan review will dig in a little deeper. But for certain, we did look, and this was a good engagement process because we did hear from the public on both sides of the issue for sure.
Any questions from council? Seeing none, I will now close the public hearing. Thank you very much, Mr. Boone. And we'll move along to, welcome back, Deputy Mayor Gould. 2.5.2, public hearing bylaw to amend the LUB 25-02 to rezone a portion of PID 2506-6606 between 292 and 354 Smith Road, Upper Napan. I will again advise that the public hearing is being held in accordance to the provisions of the Municipal Government Act, and the purpose of the public hearing is to provide the public with the opportunity to express their views or on certain proposals prior to council making a final decision. I will not go through all of the rest of that. We've done it once today for the sake of time. I will now turn the floor over to you, Director Boone. Go ahead.
Thank you, Worship. So this is a rezoning application. For the newer members of council, you've now had some experience seeing these applications. This application was made by Compass Minerals on behalf of the property owner, which is Bacon Farms Limited. This is to allow a new development of a proposed wellhead, salt brine well, which is an integral part of Compass Minerals' plant on the Smith Road. The land in question is currently zoned agricultural, so in order for this activity to take place, it would have to be rezoned to IR, or Rural Industrial Zone. So as you can see in the summary below, it is an active farm property. It has field and hay crops. On occasion, it's been used for grazing in the past. The remaining portion of the lot is not to be changed in this zoning. It's probably important to reinforce that, Your Worship, with council. So we looked at an area on this lot that would only be rezoned that will permit the immediate requirements and needs for the plant to support operations. So I've put this this map in place. Kira developed this map for us because in a couple of occasions we've had conversations with our planning contacts at Municipal Affairs, and often they, I've seen a few applications, Pugwash in particular, where we've made changes from agricultural to rural, industrial, other zones. So what we want to make sure is the public understands that we're not rezoning all of our agricultural and farm reserve lands in the municipality. And this map is really just for this region in and around the Smith Road and in and around the plant. So just really for an awareness for council, that there's a, you know, an abundance of agricultural land in this particular area. But if I took the map of Cumberland as a whole, there's a lot of agricultural land that still has the ability to be further developed or further cultivated. So these are just a couple of pictures of the existing site. So to the left, our site, our samples of the site. So this land, as I mentioned before, is already cultivated. It's been used as farmland. The development itself, there's an example to the right of what the wellhead would look like. So this is an existing wellhead that's on the plant side of the road. And in this case, the piping will actually leave the wellhead, run towards the road, go under the road. So the majority of the facility that would support this well is a limited amount of piping that then goes underground. The applicants here today, Your Worship, they have a very good photo concept design that they'll share with you, so council has a very more detailed understanding of it. So the rest of the land, with the exception of the wellhead, which will be protected and fenced in, is still going to be farmed. So I think it's important to know that. So from the considerations, Your Worship, Compass Minerals continues to be a large employer, obviously staffing over 55 employees, greatly contributes positively to local economy. Compass Minerals, being a large employer, is also a large industrial taxpayer. So when we looked at this, we always consider all of the options or all of the areas within policy. So financial implications is one, but from an environmental implications, we always look at these very closely. We looked at the overall amount of farmland in the area. We looked at the opportunities for what this development would actually do. The majority of the land is still in farmland production and would just be a small area that would be fenced off to support the salt brine well and not impede the continued agricultural use of the site. Your Worship, from community engagement point of view, public hearing was duly advertised per section 206 of the Municipal Government Act. We had a public notice on the website in advance. Furthermore, we did place an ad for this hearing and other hearings that you held today was placed in the Herald just to make sure that we were getting information out there. And as we've been doing with applications for the last 6 months plus, Your Worship, we actually post a planning notice sign on the subject property. So we, to date, at the time of this report, had no inquiries or input from the public, and I will leave it there, Your Worship. Again, it's a public hearing, so there is no required motion to consider today. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Boone. Is there anyone here from the public that wishes to speak on this matter today? Seeing none? Any addition? Oh. Oh. No, you have, sorry, you have to come forward. You can ask your question, but please come forward and state your name. Thank you. Come on, come up, don't be shy. Right there, at the chair, That's all good, don't worry, it's all good. Yep, turn the mic, we got the mic on, just hang on a second. Have a seat.
Yeah.
We're good. Yep.
All right.
Okay, and your name is?
Joan Sullivan.
Okay.
I'm from 292 Smith Road.
Good, thank you very much, go ahead.
Okay, my question was, what you're saying, the proposal, what's going to be there, is that definitely going to be it, or in a year or two's time, are they going to be allowed to come in and maybe put something else there?
Okay, we'll stop there.
Okay.
Director Boone.
So, Your Worship, when you do a rezoning, it does permit all of the uses that the rural industrial zone would have. In my conversations with the applicant, and they can also confirm in their presentation, is that at this point, they simply need this land for salt brine well. So majority of the piping, as I mentioned, will go underground and to the plant. The plant itself has been well established for generations on the side of the road where it is, and all of their infrastructure and all their equipment, which has been upgraded over time, is on the opposite side of the road. So the plan here is simply for salt brine well water source.
Okay.
Or it's not water source, salt source, where they put the water through and bring it back to the plant. So I can never predict what would happen in the future, but that's been the conversations, and that was our direct discussion with the developers, Compass Minerals, on behalf of the landowner.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Well,
Any other
yes,
questions or comments? You have 3 more minutes, so.
oh gosh.
If you want to take it. You
No,
don't
I'm
have
just
to.
saying, well, that sounds fine, but I guess I'm just a little worried about the future. If they decide that they want to put, if this is given the okay, does it give them the okay perhaps to add something else later on, that's all.
Director Boone, do you have any more to
Your
add to that?
Worship, yeah, back to answer the question. Once the zoning's in place in this portion of the land, it would be zoned rural industrial, so any of the permitted use under that zone could happen on that site. But all the conversations with the applicant is it's really for that particular source for the salt brine wells. Low impact, that's part of the reason that we supported the application. It's supporting the existing plant and not to go further than that. And the applicant can probably reconfirm. Is there a need for an additional well in the future? Possibly. But for now, one salt brine well is what's needed to support the plant operations.
Yep.
Yep.
Good, thank you very
All
much.
right, thank you.
Are you fine?
Yep,
Okay,
thank you.
good. Thank you very much. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak to this? Now would be a good time to stick your hand up. Come ahead, sir. What's going on here, I wonder? Is it appropriate, Glenn? Okay, your name, sir?
So this is the applicant.
Okay,
They're going to
good.
speak to it when you interview. Yes.
Perfect. Have a seat.
Okay.
Yep,
I wasn't sure that.
I wasn't sure there's anyone else speaking, so
Okay,
that's why.
awesome. Good.
Let's come forward.
Go ahead, sir.
Good afternoon, Your Worship and Council. I appreciate being here. My name is Joseph Havasey. I'm the Vice President of Natural Resources for Compass Minerals. In a mining context, I look after land. I have a presentation. Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, Your Worship. You're just bringing that
Yep,
one up.
that's good. We won't take that off your time.
I may have to talk really quickly to get this in 5 minutes, but. Okay, if you can proceed to the next slide. Compass Minerals is present in North America, throughout the U.S. and Canada. We primarily produce salt. At our operation in Amherst, we produce consumer and industrial salt for a number of different applications. We also produce potash in one of our Saskatchewan operations, as well as Utah, a niche form of potash, but not in Amherst. This is a summary of the products we produce: salt, the potassium sulfate, sulfate of potash, and magnesium chloride. Again, we only produce salt at the Amherst location. Next, please. Lots of different applications. We all know it's de-icing application. It's used for animal feed, chicken feed, salt blocks, for industrial purposes, for the manufacture of rubber, detergents, glass. And you can see a good summary of what we do, the products that it feeds into. I'm very proud about our safety record. That's first and foremost. We have an exemplary safety record across the company, and especially at our Amherst plant. Very proud of that. Next, please. This is a pretty neat oblique aerial view of the plant. I really want to point out the fact that we coexist. We coexist next to really important bird refuges, in the area, and we have found a way since 1947 to coexist with nominal harm. Next, please. Just another view. There's a lot of salt beneath the ground in this area. There's also been a lot of geologic deformation that's happened. Historically, amongst the 12 wells that have been advanced historically, we're only operating 3 right now. You can tap into multiple salt zones at a single wellhead. So that increases the longevity. It's not just going for one salt zone. You can go to the next while having no additional incremental impact on the surface. Next, please. We have a couple different real estate aspects. Mineral leases are on the left are shown in blue, and then in the tan white is our owned property. So we have surface rights in the tan, and the mineral leases for salt in the blue. Next, please. So focusing on sort of our own surface rights, what we're looking to do is to expand, construct a new well across Smith Road on the subject parcel that we're looking to rezone. It's proximal to the plant. There would be no impacts to wetlands associated with that. And It's a great use in that the pad is only about 100 by 200 feet, and Mr. Bacon can continue his agricultural use around that. So this shows what the development would look like in years 1 to 2. This is a single well. It's noteworthy that the wells can last from 10 to 15 years. We're currently only operating 3, really only 2. So we don't do a number of wells at the same time. We have a very isolated list of number of wells that we operate at any one time. So that may address some of the question that was asked prior to me. Next, please. Another way to address the question, if there is a next well, if we're shown to be successful, the 3 to 5 year plan could involve another well on another piece of property that's not being requested at this point. This is a bit of a let's prove ourselves that we can operate this well. So we're going for zoning for 1 well. We could in the future go for another well, but as I mentioned before, our plant has a throughput capacity. We can only operate 2 to 3 wells at any one time anyways. Next, please. And so how would we get across Smith Road? Well, we would have a brine line on the right side of the screen shown in blue that would connect to the well. We would do a underground directional bore underneath Smith Road. There would be no disturbance on the road. We already have the permit for that for DOT. And then that would connect into our existing infrastructure on our land, north of Smith Road. Next, please. And that's all I have. Thank you very much.
1 second left. Wow. Great job.
Sorry, I'm proud I was able to do that, because I probably skipped over a bunch of stuff. But are there any questions for me, or?
The only person that can ask you questions is myself in this situation. I have none. I think your presentation has certainly clarified a number of things and very clear as to what is proposed and what will be happening should it get approved by council. So I can now ask councilors if they would like to ask any questions. Hearing none, you're excused.
Thank you very much.
And with no further questions from council, I will now close this public hearing. Thank you very much, folks. I'm going back to the other one. Where did it go? Next on the list is 2.5.3, public hearing, development agreement for 2 King Street, Spring Hill. I will also now advise that the public hearing is being held according to the provisions of the Municipal Government Act, and that the purpose of the public hearing is to provide the public with the opportunity to express their views on certain proposals prior to council making a final decision. I will now call the public hearing to order and ask Mr. Boone to go ahead. Thank you very much.
Thank you again, Your Worship, members of council, and those in the public that are here for this particular hearing. So, Your Worship, this is a little different than some of the planning applications that council, both new councilors and existing returning councilors have seen. Development agreement is a little bit more unique in that it's a contract that gets very specific to a site. And in this case, the particular lot is zoned lower density residential. However, within our land use bylaw and our municipal planning strategy, we can consider commercial developments through a development agreement. So again, a very specific contract with very specific criteria that are set out in an agreement that becomes registered and placed on the parcel through the land registry land titles. So this particular building is currently vacant. It was a former retail operation. Prior to that, it was an EHS or an ambulance base, I guess was the term in those days. So the things that we have to look at when we're considering an existing commercial building is, in this particular zone, is how long has it not been operating as a commercial entity. So part of your package had some information around existing non-conforming uses. That was just to give you information of why in particular we're here with this application, because we couldn't simply approve a change to this new retail operation because the building had not been operating commercially for a period of time. So when we consider a development agreement, you see the criteria there, Your Worship, but some key points that I want to just, in that list, restrictions on signage and commercial lighting, so that's part of the development agreement that's in your package. Requirements for parking and defined access, so the old parking lot off King Street was a little bit more opened from corner to corner, so the plan here would be to restrict access, so it wouldn't be the wide open access points that exist there now with the paved area, but to restrict access both off Lisgar and King Street. The applicant has actually noted to us, Your Worship, that they probably look at not having any access off King Street at all, but in the development agreement as we proposed it, we're looking to restrict it to keep traffic away from the intersection. Restrictions on hour of operations can be part of the development agreement, which they are. And then requirements for screening. So in this case, to the rear of the property or to the right side on the screen, we have maintain a separation there, but there is an opportunity in this development agreement to have a storage facility. If that storage facility is not there, and the existing residential property has a fence, if that fence was not there, we would require the applicant to screen with a fence, an opaque privacy fence along that lines. In this case, if they put the storage building forward, the storage building has requirements around how it looks, siding, skirting, and general aesthetics or architectural standards, and that will create the screening. But if that building is not there, there is opportunity to require screening in the form of a fence. Conditions for expansion are limited. So again, that was a consideration of this, is to limit any expansion in the future, as well as accessibility requirements. So accessibility would be part of any new development under not just a development agreement, but under development permit, and you see that they would have to provide accessible parking close to the building to hit that criteria. So just some photos to show a little bit perspective. It is a residential RLO zone. That is how it's zoned. Immediately across the street, you can see the industrial zoning. That's part of the Surratt Battery location. Just a little bit further to the top, you can see some additional industrial zoning that are just cut off the map. That's some land that's currently vacant and owned by the municipality, but it would be directly across from our Public Works garage, which is also zoned industrial. The immediately across the street, you see the R multi or the multi-residential. That is a seniors complex that is in the neighborhood, and you can see that a lot of the other properties around it are zoned RLO. The bylaw and the policy permit us to consider development agreements. And again, just to reinforce, that's why we put very specific criteria on development agreements to make sure that it's very site specific and very detailed and does create restrictions around how the development goes forward. Corner lot means additional development requirements regarding the intersection safety. So as I mentioned about the driveways earlier, that would you can see in the bottom photo to the right, you can see how open the driveways are. So the development agreement would restrict those access points, so you wouldn't have multiple cars coming in and out of multiple points. A little hard to see there. Maybe you were up there today with the snow that's around, but certainly that's a good depiction, that photo to the right that we took back in the fall. Next. So public input. There's been lots of engagement on this, Your Worship. We have received 14 comments received in support of the development. The comments expressed in quick summary, they think there's better parking options for this business as opposed to its current location downtown. Maybe more convenient for truck deliveries. Lisgar Street is our new truck route, as was approved by council by bylaw. So trucks that would be coming to and from this would only travel on Lisgar Street. That's required by bylaw. There are some comments around pedestrian access. We're just repeating the comments we heard from those in support of the application. You will understand that those who were opposed to the application also saw concerns in the reverse regarding pedestrian access. Just wanted to try to provide that balance. And there was a petition that you would have received today because it was developed with a number of submissions. So the deputy clerk provided you 2.5.3. There is actually a petition in support of the development, which includes folks from the neighborhood, both on Lisgar Street as well as some on Queen Street that signed that petition. So balance of information. Next slide, please. So as part of the planning process, we look to make sure there's balance. We bring input from all concerned residents and citizens. We've had 2 written comments received on this. They're part of your package. Obviously, pedestrian safety, when you bring anything commercial to a neighborhood, is something we need to consider. So that's why we looked at the traffic restrictions on driveways. And a fair comment is neighborhood character, because when you look at a residential neighborhood, we have to look at things like neighborhood character. In this case, it's an existing commercial building, although vacant. So we looked at that as being one of the criteria. If this was a vacant lot, our recommendation might have been a little different, or may have required additional criteria around the development agreement. And there is a petition that is part of your package. It was submitted with a lot of residents from the local area. 49 signatures were attached on that petition as well, Your Worship. So just to ensure any other comments that were not in your package, either for or against the development, as we get those over time, we always ensure that those pieces of information are all included in the second reading report when that comes in front of council. So, financial implications, there's none specific to the municipality. Obviously, redevelopment of the existing site in the building will enhance commercial tax value of that property. Important to note that. There's no specific environmental implications, because this is an area that's serviced for the residents with sewer and water that's central, municipally controlled. All stormwater would be directed to the municipal stormwater system, which would either be to the open ditch or any in-ground stormwater that's system that's in the area. As with all of our applications, Your Worship, public input and public engagement is very important. We've had lots of input on this one. So the public was notice for this hearing was duly put on our website for the MGA. That was done on February 4th, and as well we put a ad in the Chronicle Herald on February 8th to give more notice. No longer required to have those public notices, but we've been maintaining that process, at least one ad. And we posted a planning notice on the property. Your Worship, I will note that the planning notice sign was missing from the post as of today, but it was duly installed, and we're not sure if the weather took it down, but it was properly posted on the site. So of the comments received, it's in the summary I mentioned earlier. In addition to those comments received, it's the 2 petitions I have highlighted, but just want to make sure you know that's part of the community engagement process. A summary of those comments were put into the package to try to make it a little easier for council to review. So again, Your Worship, it's a public hearing, so no motions to consider at this point. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Boone. Is there anyone here from the public that wishes to speak on this matter today? Thank you. Before you go, have your seat.
Okay.
Sit down, please.
I might have to keep moving, but.
Okay. Just to be clear, you're not the applicant, right?
No.
Okay, good. But if the applicant is here and wishes to speak, we will save them for last.
Sure.
So, okay, your name?
Alexandra Mackey.
Go ahead.
I think each one of you received an email from me at some point recently. So I live next door to this development at 8 King Street. I've lived there for about 13 years. Since that time that I've lived there, there has not been a retail business or any type of commercial activity that has occurred at that location. In fact, it was a residential apartment for quite some time. So I just wanted to make that point to you guys. I've gone around and canvassed my neighborhood and spoke to all my neighbors, because we're quite a tight community on that street. And as you can tell from the petition that I handed in on Friday, that the majority of King Street is opposed to this development, as you can see with the addresses and apartment numbers and whatnot. Many of the seniors across the road as well have mobility issues. They travel that road frequently, and an increase in the traffic there. We've got dozens of kids that all play up and down that road, and a business obviously creates more traffic and more dangers for those kids. So I just wanted to put a face to the email so you all heard my comments and took them into consideration. It'd be greatly appreciated.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that wishes to speak? Go ahead, sir. Come on down.
Yeah.
My name's John Choicenut. Good afternoon, Your Worship and everybody else. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm here to talk about the development agreement on 2 King Street, Spring Hill. I am the owner of Choicenut's Tire and Auto Parts. We're a family business. We are deep roots in the community. All my employees are local. We support local. We support local fundraisers. We buy local, and many of our customers express they too want to buy local and support a local business. So what we're doing is we're open to relocate our business to a property we recently purchased. It's in a prime location for us to continue growing. Currently, we're situated on Main Street. No room for expansion. We're busting at the seams. I can't put any more stock on the shelves. We're limited to 1 single parking space except for parking on Main Street. Main Street is not the best trucking route for parking or deliveries. Currently, most of our deliveries come in from Victoria Street, which is not a trucking route. We're working with the planning department on a plan that will address any concerns required in our relocation. Our property on Lisgar Street is on a trucking route, has easy and abundant parking. The plan is to have a driveway access to be off Lisgar Street. This will keep any truck traffic off of King Street and away from any seniors. We have submitted to the development committee. No, wait. The proposed direct location is directly across the road from Surratt's Battery Factory, which is next door to the Town Shed Service Center. The property was originally built as a commercial building, stayed commercial until the last store closed on the site. And yes, it was rented out as an apartment for several years. We have submitted to the development committee a list of over 100 persons who support our move. It is noted that 37 signatures are from Lisgar Street. No one we approached declined to sign our support letters. We have asked for community members to submit their support in separate emails. I hear they did quite well. We are hoping what we've done will meet with your approval and receive a favorable response. And I will check my cameras to see where that sign went. It is covered by my cameras. Might take me a couple days, but I'll send you a picture of either someone or the wind just saying goodbye. I don't know.
Hard to say.
Okay, guys? Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any,
Questions?
yep, don't move.
Okay.
Any questions from council? Now you can move. Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
I will now close this public hearing. Thank you, everyone. Number 3, organizational policy / bylaw items. Whoop. Oh, sorry, we're moving along here. 2.5.4.
She's on Zoom.
Okay, good. Thank you very much. And this is a presentation regarding a youth engagement research project. And the presentation will be provided here now, I guess, on Zoom.
Peter's working on it, yeah.
Is the presenter here? Okay, good. And then we will follow along on this, I'm assuming.
Hello.
Hi, welcome.
Thanks for having me. I'm just going to try to share my screen here. 1 second. Bear with me.
Before we start, I will remind you that we have a time frame of 15 minutes for you to do your presentation, okay?
Okay, thank you. Oh, here we go. Okay. All right, can folks see that? The PowerPoint, I think.
We can see it,
Folks should
thank
be
you.
able to see.
Yep.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, hi folks, my name is Haley Tatry. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm here today to present to you about a research project that's been going on in Cumberland, and that's been led by myself. So before beginning, I would just like to acknowledge that we are on the unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq. I myself am a white settler who's been fortunate enough to grow up here in Mi'kmaqi for my entire life. And I think it's really important that when we do land acknowledgements, that each of us take time to reflect on what does it mean to be on stolen land and what is your identity and your relationship to the land. All right, so just a brief introduction about myself. So as I said, my name is Haley Tatry. I actually grew up in Cumberland County. I grew up in Oxford and ended up going to university at Mount Allison for a a Bachelor of Arts with an honors in sociology. I then did my Master's of Arts in sociology at Dalhousie, and I'm now completing my PhD in educational studies at Mount St. Vincent University. I also teach at St. Mary's University, and I like to visit back home in Cumberland because I have still lots of family there. And I actually used to work for the municipality, and my office, it was actually the council chambers. So it feels very full circle moment for me now to be presenting to you folks. I remember before you folks would have meetings, this was a few years ago now, but having to kind of like tuck all my stuff away. So yeah, it kind of feels very full circle moment for me to be back here presenting. And thanks again for having me online. I meant to come down in person, but the weather was just too gross for me to make it down. So yeah, I have years of experience in research, and I was approached by a group in Cumberland, previously known as the Poverty Reduction Advisory Committee, that was made up of folks who were a part of the municipality of the County of Cumberland, as well as members from the town of Amherst and the town of Oxford. So this research project was in collaboration with these groups, Mount St. Vincent University researchers, so myself, as well as my tax. And this was all in the effort to identify innovative solutions to engage youth in their communities and to better understand youth out migration. So what actually is my tax? So my tax is a nonprofit national research organization, and they work together with the town of Amherst, town of Oxford, and the municipality of Cumberland to actually fund this research project. So I was fortunate enough to be funded to do this research, trying to identify, why would youth want to stay in Cumberland, or why, if they're leaving, why do they want to leave? So this funding went to not just um, paying me for my time as a researcher and for the interviews I conducted, but also for things like paying folks, giving them gift cards as a thank you for participating in the research, but also covering things like gas and mileage for the traveling I did around the county. As I'm sure you're all aware, Cumberland is an awfully big county despite our small population. So the research question is, how do schools influence youth out migration for rural communities, and what role can and should local governments take regarding schools and youth out migration? And I should note that this research question is geared more towards education, as I am completing my PhD in educational studies. So what's really great about this research for me is that not only do I get to kind of return to my home community and look at what do youth care about, but on top of that, it's helping me to actually complete my PhD so that I have a doctorate. So what did I actually do to, find out what youth care about? So a big thing that was important to me in moving through this research process was being reflexive and practicing reciprocity and building relationships. So I wanted folks who took part in the study to actually feel like they had something to gain from it as well. I wanted them to know that I really cared about their stories. And this wasn't just about youth either. This was also about youth service providers. So I have interviewed 18 youth service providers. That includes school counselors, um, folks from the Cumberland County Youth Development Center. I've interviewed folks who've been teachers, who worked for the school, who've been counselors, who have worked in the homelessness sector. So really just all kinds of youth workers around the county. And I tried to make an effort to not just interview folks in the main community of Amherst, but to reach out to folks beyond that as well. And I'm very happy to say that I got those 18 interviews, some of which were short, some of which were, close to an hour, depending on how much they wanted to say. And it was all very insightful. I managed to interview 2 youth who came forward and approached me wanting to be interviewed. And I am currently working on 2 sharing circles, focus groups, and I was actually supposed to complete one yesterday. But again, the schools and the youth center were closed due to the weather. So I've kind of been cursing out the winter weather. It's been really getting in my way, but I have 2 sharing circles, one happening in Amherst, but with youth from River Hibbert, Parsboro, Spring Hill, Amherst. And I also plan to do a focus group in Pugwash, and I'm currently working on that. So what are the limitations in this study? So it is still ongoing. Some of the big limitations have just been ethics approval, honestly. And I just wanted to mention that and be transparent with it in case folks are thinking, well, my goodness, why hasn't she completed this research yet? And a big part of that is ethics approval. So just as an example, I submitted my ethics application to the school board in June, and I didn't hear back until the end of November, despite kind of pushing and tried to pressure them to give me that ethics approval. So actually getting access to the schools and any youth who are under the age of 18 is incredibly difficult, I've come to learn. So accessing the schools, getting that ethics approval has been very challenging, but also just youth engagement in general. But I would argue that I believe that is a really important finding, that youth are kind of struggling even to come forward and be a part of these focus groups or to be a part of a one-on-one interview, despite efforts to make it very accessible. A lot of them, I think, are just so used to not having their voices listened to and not having folks care, that when I say to them, no, like your local government cares, like people want to hear from you, they're kind of taken aback, and I think it's something they have to get used to. So what has been the research process so far? So I conducted all of my youth service provider interviews in the summer of 2024, but also leading into the fall. So during that, I would come up to Cumberland and try to get as many interviews done when I was down at a time. And as I said, I met folks at a location that was most convenient to them, usually at their offices. And I traveled around Amherst, Parsboro, Spring Hill, different areas like that. The ethics application, as I said, was submitted in June, didn't hear back until end of November. Tried to get in contact with them with the school, but since it was near the end of November / end of December, it was difficult to get into those schools because they were obviously going on winter break. And I am supposed to be, again, having these focus groups soon. So I do have some really interesting findings so far, but I am just trying to finish up and get some more youth voices. But I am also really focusing on analyzing the literature that relates to this kind of research, and I am working on transcribing interviews. So what are the findings so far? And I just want to note that this is just a really quick overview of what the findings are so far. More is, of course, going to come out of those focus groups. And it is my goal to kind of have a public session where I go more in depth and I actually present the findings when I have more time available. And you will all, of course, be invited to that. And I'm really looking forward to presenting all the findings. So what have I been finding so far? Transportation is a top issue. This was not something that I actually expected. Some of the things I did expect, like poverty, homelessness, things like that, but transportation is not something I saw. So all youth service providers I talked to, most of the youth that I've talked to so far as well, have all said the same thing. There's no way to get around. And if you don't live, especially in Amherst, which seems to be the main community, you're kind of, as a lot of them have said, you're screwed. There's no way to get around. So that's been a big topic of discussion, is how do we engage youth in our communities? How do we get them to feel like their voice is heard if they can actually get out of these more rural communities? So that's been a top issue. Another one is the need for a third space. So what do I mean by a third space? So not the space of schools or work and not home, but an additional space. So, for instance, like a cafe or a youth center, but just a space where you're not at work, you're not at home, but it's a place that you can go and be social and truly feel a sense of community. So that has been something that's youth and youth service providers have noticed as well, that youth are in need of a third space, right? Um, Drugs, poverty, and homelessness were all big issues. The drug issue, I think, especially surprised me, just how common it seems to be, and that, of course, is back to relation of poverty, homelessness, but also youth, frankly, just feeling bored and like there's nothing to do. Another finding was lack of funding and training for youth service providers. So as we're starting to see issues like income inequality continue to grow truly across the country, but we're feeling it in these rural communities as well. We're seeing an increase in issues like poverty and homelessness, and the youth are feeling it too. There truly is an issue of youth homelessness that I wasn't near as prevalent as it was, I believe, prior to COVID. And with that, again, comes access to drugs, but also these youth service providers are feeling very ill prepared to deal with these issues that are kind of showing up on their doorstep. So, with the few minutes I have left, I just wanted to quickly talk about contributions. So, this study is going to help the municipality be recognized as a trailblazer. I believe that it could bring more research and funding to the area. It helps to inform policy and program development. So, not only is this helping me to finish my dissertation, but along with the presentation on my findings, I will be providing a list of recommendations to the municipality as well as to the town of Oxford and the town of Amherst that will hopefully be implemented. This research is going to be presented at conferences. It's already been presented at some conferences, one in Toronto a couple years ago. This is at kind of the beginning stages of it, at the proposal stage, but I'll be presenting the findings at two different conferences, one in Quebec City and another in Toronto, where there will be 7,000 academics in attendance. Not that many, of course, at my presentation, but this is a big conference where I'm very eager to share this research with others. And there's also fruitful opportunities to partner with Mount Allison and NSCC, and I've talked to folks from both of those schools about this project. So I really think there's a lot of work to be done ahead of this project as well. And finally, I just wanted to share that I am working on publishing a book actually about this study and about the findings. And the goal is to have the book finished by the end of May. And I'm going to work with Fernwood Publishing to perhaps get it funded to get it published. Nothing is in the works yet. This is still very much at the beginning stages, but so far I am in the writing process of getting this book going, and I'm currently working pretty close with the Cumberland Archives to get a background of the county, as well as I think writing a book about these findings. It's important to give a background of what is Cumberland County and what's our history, and that's been a pretty special treat for me as well. I've been learning a lot about my home county, and if any of you have any fun facts or things that you think should be included in the book, I would love to hear from you folks. So that's it. I know that was kind of a speed run, but again, in the future, in the next few months, I will be having an actual session where there's more time to go far more in depth with the findings, but also more time for questions and some conversation as well. So thank you, and feel free to reach out to me via email as well. And I will make sure to have Peter share my email if you folks don't have it.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Haley. Council, does anyone have any questions or comments? Go ahead, Councilor O'Telling.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to say thank you, Haley, for updating us, and I agree, it is very difficult to get the youth engaged. It's been a priority for me for the whole time I've been on council, and it is quite a challenge. As you know, we've been trying to work on Pugwash for quite some time to get those kids signed up, so I appreciate all the work you're doing, and I just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jen. And I should note I've been working very closely with Jen, so thank you, Jen, for all the work you've been putting into this project as well.
Awesome. Anyone else? Councilor Lee, go ahead.
Your Worship, I was just curious if you could just describe very quickly and briefly how it is that you are engaging the youth, like to participate. I'm just really curious on that point.
So posters have been out and shared for about a year now. I left them with all youth service providers to distribute with the youth that they work with. As well, I've gone to the youth center in Amherst and kind of given this speech to youth there as well. But again, it's been really challenging. And the big reason for that is because if they are, again, 18 or younger, I have to have their parents sign a permission slip. And it may sound simple, oh, here's paper, just bring it back. But it's actually incredibly difficult to get them to bring that permission slip back to me. So getting those one-on-one interviews has been really hard, despite reaching out to them saying, I have gift cards and I'll meet you wherever. It can be short and sweet, or you can talk as long as you want. But getting that permission slip back for the younger ones has been really challenging. But I'm really hoping the focus group is going to be a better opportunity to get some more data. I was supposed to, again, have one yesterday with about 12 youth from around the county, but due to the weather, I couldn't. And Jen and I are working on trying to get some youth from Pugwash. But again, that's been a struggle too. So.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you very much. I will add, Haley, that there's some great work going on around Cumberland County right now with the town of Amherst. In the town itself, there's in the works, the social enterprise on Prince Arthur Street there that's primarily targeting youth, and the Cumberland Homelessness Society has actively looking and working on a project right now to acquire another property in the Amherst area, specifically designated for youth. So it'd be interesting looking forward to seeing those projects come to completion too. So anyway, thank you very much. Great information, and nice to have you here, and a great presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
There we go. Organizational policy and bylaw items. 3.1, feasibility of establishing a bylaw to impose fines on repeat unsightly offenders. Director Alan Cole, the floor is now yours.
Thank you, Your Worship. I believe this is begins at page 103 of Council's package, Your Worship. There's a memorandum that was prepared to address this question. The first part of the memo deals with the question of whether or not the authority exists to enact such a bylaw. As Council is aware, municipal councils have no inherent authority outside of the enabling statutes, which in this case is the Municipal Government Act. So I briefly go through the sections of the Act that are pertinent to the question at hand. And the short answer is that, yes, the authority does exist. The most relevant section of the Act is Section 348 of the Municipal Government Act, subsection 4, which allows for a fine to be levied against someone after an order is issued upon summary conviction, which means that it is in the provincial court of Nova Scotia. Every day that a condition is not remedied is a separate offense, so theoretically that fine could be levied multiple times. So on the second page, page 104, we go through a number of factors that need to be considered when addressing this issue, and I'll just go through those briefly. A fine under an act or bylaw can only be issued on a long-form information or a summary offense ticket. As a summary offense ticket, it has to be the minimum amount of the fine that is set out in the bylaw. And that's it from the Summary Proceedings Act, Section 8, subsection 6. At the moment, Cumberland County does not have the ability to issue summary offense tickets. That ability is in the works. Our application to have those tickets, that ticketing ability is in the hands of the Department of Justice. It could be anywhere from 6 to 8 months to a year before that's finalized, and we do have that ability. In the meantime, our only ability to fine is under the Municipal Government Act in the section that I've referred to. So in a number of unsightly premises cases, there is a socioeconomic element in relation to the condition of the property. And in other cases, there's also a social skills potential aspect. As Mayor Scott was fond of saying, it's not a crime to be poor. And we do take into account the circumstances of the property owner when we look at an unsightly property complaint. The other thing to consider is that a fine does not clean up the unsightly premises. Now, Colchester County has recently enacted a bylaw, much like council had envisioned when this task was given to staff. That bylaw has not yet been tested and provides for fines that exceed the minimum under the Municipal Government Act. Now, on its face, there doesn't seem to be a conflict between the two, because the Municipal Government Act says that a fine can be not less than $100 and not more than the maximum. The Colchester bylaw says the fine is not less than $500, which is not less than 100. But when one gets to the Summary Proceedings Act, the minimum under a summary offense ticket is $100 under the Municipal Government Act and $500 under the proposed bylaw. So that is where a conflict may or may not arise. It hasn't been adjudicated yet. So other than the potential to increase the minimum fine, which I'm concerned may not be enforceable if challenged in court because of the potential conflict, and the law is quite settled. As I say at the very beginning, municipal council cannot enact any bylaw that is in conflict with the laws of the province or of Canada. So if there's a conflict, the bylaw would be ultra vires, at least that section of it. And that would be the only section that would be relevant. So having that in mind, the recommendation of staff is that council not create a new bylaw regarding repeat unsightly offenders, but rather amend the existing dangerous or unsightly premises policy to allow the administrator of dangerous or unsightly premises to monitor on a regular basis for a 12-month period any property against which an order has been issued. So at the moment, if we issue an order and the property is cleaned up, it requires a new complaint before we can do anything. This would allow the administrator, me, my staff, to monitor that property and proceed without having a new complaint. And then once we have the ability to issue summary offense tickets, then that whole procedure is greatly streamlined. So that's the recommendation that I came up with, Your Worship. Yeah, happy to take any questions from Your Worship or Council.
Any questions from Council? Councilor O'Telling, go ahead.
I would just like to move that recommended motion.
The recommendation that Mr. Cole just read in its entirety?
Yes.
We can do that, can we not?
Yeah, I would, Your Worship, I would say probably it would be to direct staff to create, bring forward some amendments to that effect. So that's just a little nuance, but yeah.
Okay, so it is a motion still then? Or are we just going to direct staff and put the motion for the next meeting?
That directs staff to prepare amendments to the policy to allow for
council's consideration.
right, yeah, to bring forward.
Okay, so no motion then.
What's that?
No motion then, just going to direction, right?
No, you still need a motion of
Okay,
direction.
nope,
Yep.
just making sure.
Yep.
Which way you want to fall on the sword here, so. Okay, motion has been made. Seconder for the motion, Deputy Mayor Gould. And any questions on the motion?
So it's not this motion.
Yes. The direction is
Right.
to
Yeah, okay.
direct staff.
We'll tidy it up.
Yes,
Right
exactly.
on, okay.
You got that, okay?
All right.
I'm not worried about you having it, I'm worried about her having it.
That's all right.
Okay, good. As long as Amanda's got it recorded properly, we're good to go. Okay, any questions or more comments on the motion? Seeing none, a call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded? Hearing none, the motion is carried. Thank you very much, Councilor Tellin. 5.1, external reports, committee minutes. Community Navigator monthly report is contained in your package, as is the solid waste monthly report. It is contained in your meeting package too.
I will, Your Worship, just take
ahead.
this opportunity, if I could, at the solid waste monthly report portion to advise council that we have received finally, actually Friday, an offer from Circular Materials with respect to EPR, and we'll be bringing that forward to council to discuss here in due course shortly. So
That is around the recyclables.
that's about extended producer responsibility and the cost and responsibility for the collection and processing of recyclable material.
Good, thank you very much. Item number 6.1, Administration Department monthly report. Peter McCracken, Deputy CAO, you now have the floor.
Thank you, Your Worship. The report from the Administration Department's in your package. Hopefully, council members have had the opportunity to review that report. I'm just going to highlight a couple of quick tidbits. First is we are planning an employee recognition event on March 27th. This will be in combination with our first ever, I believe, all-staff meeting since the consolidation of the two towns with the municipality. So it's a long time coming. We're very excited about that. And we'll be recognizing years of service, anywhere from 10 years to an employee who has 35 years of service with the municipality. Secondly, just want to draw your attention to page 115. There's some figures there from a number of community sponsorships that we've been providing through our advertising and promotions budget. So there's some community organizations that are being supported in addition to the district and county-wide grants. And then finally, it doesn't sound that exciting to maybe some folks, but for us from an IT security perspective on page 116, we have a firewall device protection of 100% compliance. What that means is a firewall is a system to monitor sort of incoming and outgoing traffic and acts as a barrier to untrusted other networks and connections. So we're very pleased to have all 14 of our sites, managed sites, protected, and it's a big leap in terms of our compliance with our cybersecurity. And I'll take any further questions.
Thank you very much. Any questions, anyone?
Just if I could add, Your Worship, thank you, Peter, for the report. Just to follow up on the all-staff meeting on the
27th of March.
27th, just to give council a heads up that we will be closing a number of offices for 3 or 4 hours in the middle of the day to accommodate that meeting. So we'll have lots of notification to the public and to council and staff on that as we get closer to that date. So.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. McCracken.
Awesome.
6.2, Development and Planning Department monthly report. Director Boone, you can have the floor, only for a short period. Oh, did I say that? What's that?
Thank you, Your Worship. The report is in your package. If you have any particular questions, be happy to answer them or clarify.
Oh, there's a new record. Anyone have any questions for Mr. Boone?
It was distributed.
As it was.
As it was distributed,
Yes.
sorry.
Yep, all distributed? Hearing none? There you go. All good. Thank you very much, Mr. Boone. Finance Department monthly report. I always look forward to this one. Director Hurdle, go ahead. Yep.
Thank you, Your Worship. The report is in your package. I'm just going to draw your attention very briefly to a couple things. T4 reports, T4s will be available by the end of the month, so those should be available soon and will be distributed and or mailed out. And there was a tax sale held on January 24th. The next one's on March 18th, January 14th. The next one is on March 18th, and there's several properties on that list.
Thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions for the Director of Finance? Hearing none. Thank you very much, Amy.
Thank you.
Protective Services Department Monthly Report. Director Alan Cole. You now have the floor.
Bar is high, Al.
Yes, the bar has been set very high.
I will not beat Director Boone's time, but I will try and be brief.
I feel the trophy is moving.
My report, Your Worship, begins at page 120. There was one event that involved emergency management in late January where power outage in Pugwash resulted in the hospital being without power and the generator not kicking in, so there were tentative plans to evacuate the hospital, which luckily didn't have to occur. Most staff received first aid training during the month. The statistics for fire callouts are pretty standard. Page 121, there's a picture of the new Pugwash fire truck, which is not nearly as good as the viewing that members of council had today outside in the parking lot. The monthly stats are much the same, and the only thing I would like to highlight is that Brianne Murphy, the administrative assistant for Protective Services, and Kendall Spence, the manager of fire services, are both now accredited bylaw officers and special constables. So they will, hopefully, that won't impact their primary duties, but they will be available to assist in bylaw when needed.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cole. I note in your report that there is still an outstanding livestock at large file, so is that something to do with the cattle in Riverhead area? Or?
Yes, indeed. There have been 3 court appearances by the DaCostas in provincial court. On each appearance, they have advised the court that they've been unable to retain counsel. Since in the last appearance, they said they've been trying to retain counsel since July. The matter was then adjourned to March 10th, coming up, where the judge advised them that if they didn't have counsel at that time, they should have a very good reason why not. It's not unusual, Your Worship, for these things to drag on a bit, although I'm hopeful that the next appearance will be where they have to plead, and then we'll set the trial date.
Good, thank you very much. Anyone have any other questions for Director Cole? Thank you for your report. 6.5, Public Works Department Monthly Report. Justin Walcrest, Director, you now have the floor.
Thank you, Your Worship. Some description there on a couple projects we've been working on in the department over the last month or so, and a summary of some of the work public works groups have been taking care of in the communities of Spring Hill, Parisboro, and our rural sewer systems. Some specific highlight to the water meter installation wrap-up in Spring Hill. We discussed that last month. Kelly's Consulting Municipal Services Group was in and worked to install 46 meters. We determined that there are 23 properties that are vacant and uninhabited, and they've been shut off. And if someone in the future wants water service there, we'll make sure we install a meter first. So that leaves us, of that 78 outstanding meters, 9 left to deal with. And we've been in touch with all those homeowners and property owners, and we're continuing to work with them. They're other difficult jobs, they're having to be out of town, but Kelly's is in the area frequently and will continue to support us get that last quarter mile done. We've got the last mile nearly completed. Happy to take any questions from council, Your Worship.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chris. Councilor Locker, go ahead.
We discussed it at the last meeting about the delinquent accounts when we do shut water off. We put the door knocker on. Are we going to take a picture of that going forward?
Director Walcrest?
Yes, I'll continue to work with staff to get them to make sure they're in that habit. It'll maybe take a couple billing cycles to get in that locked in as part of the process, but yeah, we'll start working towards that.
I think that would be a good way, just because I know I had one come back and bite me, and that way if you've got the picture, there's no, it's like a delivery, like when you get an Amazon thing or something, they have the picture. Would be a small suggestion.
Thank you, and it's done as a courtesy, not as a requirement as well.
Yeah. Exactly. So I can say I've had a couple of snow season complaints directed at Public Works, and both of them, one in Spring Hill and one in Parsboro, involve that we're plowing too much and we're going around plowing too much snow. So if that's the only complaints we get from Public Works all winter, I would consider that we've done a very good job.
Thank you, Your Worship.
So, thank you very much. 6 point, go ahead, you're free to go. I don't know if we have any questions. No? Nope, we're good. 6.6, Recreation and Community Services Department Monthly Report. Ally McCormick, Director, the floor is now yours.
Thank you, Your Worship. Included in your council package, you'll find the Recreation and Community Services Monthly Report, and I'll just highlight a few items. First of all, we are really excited to announce that our summer employment job opportunities, summer job opportunities have been posted on our website, and we're in full-blown promotion mode for that. And so, again, it's on our website, social media. We're working directly with the schools to have our recreation programmer come in and speak to the schools. And so, again, we're just continuing to work forward on our strategy for trying to get the word out. March 13th is a deadline, and we encourage anyone, if they have questions, they can contact the municipality or they can visit our municipal website. I also just want to remind folks that the nominations for the community volunteer event, that closes on February 28th. And so, again, we're just encouraging anyone who knows someone in the community that's a valuable volunteer. We really encourage any resident in the municipality to recognize that person and submit that nomination. And again, more information can be found on our municipal website. And finally, I just want to highlight a couple programs that we're running through our Learn to Lead program. These two programs are coming up in end of winter, early spring. One's the Pugwash Wilderness First Aid, and that's for March 7th to March 9th. And the other is the River Hibbert babysitting course. And again, through our Learn to Lead program, the goal is that as a municipality, we work with organizations like the Cumberland Y or other local community groups to try and deliver these programming try and get it closer to the residents throughout the municipality, and again, with the goal of a reduced cost to try and remove some financial barriers that residents may have. And we have a whole list of Learn to Lead programs that are listed. These are only two, but I encourage everyone to, again, you can contact Carolyn Bulwark. She manages a lot of the Learn to Lead programming, or you can visit the Learn to Lead Facebook page. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Ally. Anyone have any questions? Seeing none? Thank you very much. Item 7.1, contracts awarded by the CAO.
Your Worship, other than keeping the lights on, the CAO spent no money this month.
That's the way to keep it. It's very good coming into budget season. Keep up the good work, sir. 7.2, Hub Fire Model Briefing. Alan Cole, Director of Protective Services. You're back on the hot seat,
so to speak.
Thank you, Your Worship. A number of members of council were on the Fire Services Review Committee that basically established the parameters of the hub model and set out the terms of the fire department bylaw that we have. So those members of council would be quite familiar with the hub model. The newer councillors will, of course, not. And this is just an explanation at a very high level of what the hub model is all about. So the municipality is divided into 4 zones, and those are, each of those zones has a hub, which technically is a support hub, is what we like to call it, fire department in that zone. Now, generally, that department is the largest fire department in the zone, and I say generally because there's one exception. So the hubs are, well, the hub department is equipped with the ability for full service. Full service by a fire department is fire suppression with interior attack and rescue capability, emergency medical services, motor vehicle extrication, and then other services relevant to that particular area. Like if the hub department is near water, there'd be water rescue capability, that sort of thing. I thought I was getting the hook for a minute.
Oh, you're good. Continue on. I'm enthralled.
So the hubs are generally the largest departments in the zone. And in addition to fire, medical, and other emergency services, the hubs will, the reason we call them support hubs is they will act as logistical centers to some degree. They'll store spare equipment and supplies for the local departments. So we have the hub departments, and in each hub zone there are local departments. Those on council, Your Worship, who have read the Fire Services Review will find different language, but we call them hubs and local departments. The hubs will facilitate equipment testing and cleaning of equipment and coordinate training and hopefully public education in the future for their zone. The hubs are Parsboro, Spring Hill, Pugwash, which are the main urban centers, and Trumanville. And Trumanville was a choice of hubs primarily on a geographical basis, but it's also a very well-run department and fit the role very well. It's important to note that the hubs do not control in any way the local departments within their areas. Right, the local departments are completely independent, but the hubs are designed, since they're centralized, they're larger typically, to support the local departments. That's the idea. The last slide didn't actually come out that well, but the slide on the left shows where the hubs are, starting from the southernmost part of Parsboro, then Spring Hill, Trumanville, and Pugwash. The slide on the right shows all of the fire departments within Cumberland County, except for Amherst. And I don't think Oxford's on there either, although I can't actually see that slide.
No, it's not.
But you'll see that there is a very good distribution of departments in Cumberland County, except for Advocate, which is way off by itself, and Joggins and River Hibbert, which are the symbols are almost touching; they're so close together. So, happy to take any questions, Your Worship, but that's a quick rundown of what the hub model is all about. I expect sometime in the summer to do another presentation on where fire service generally is going, where the hubs are leading us, and the future of fire service in the municipality. But that's it for now.
Great. Thank you very much, Director Cole. Anyone have any questions or comments? Go ahead, Marshall. Councilor Strong, sir.
Yes. Can I just clarify, how or who does a fire department in a hub contact when equipment, supplies, cleaning of equipment are required?
Director Cole.
Your Worship, that would be Mr. Spence.
But if we are part of the hub, for instance, say if I'm in Cheminicas and Trumanville is my hub station, would I not contact the hub station?
Your Worship? Yes, and it depends on the area and the hub. Certainly the local departments can contact the hubs directly, and many of them do.
Okay.
Because all of the hubs now have testing equipment and cleaning equipment. But if there's any difficulty, then Kendall Spence will sort that out.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. 7.3, Summer Recreation Program Brochure 2025.
I think, Your Worship, the item is there for council's information unless anybody has a specific question. Ally's happy to answer it, but it's just meant to be an information item.
Perfect. Thank you very much. This concludes this evening's festivities. Could I have a motion to adjourn, please? So moved by Deputy Mayor Gould. We are now adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for your time and your effort today.